one mic, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah. We'll share it.
Perfect.
I mentioned a little bit in the intro, but we're very taken with kind of the carefulness of the tone in this movie. I think kind of the cheap way to do it is a bunch of vomit jokes and a bunch of things like that, and you kind of eschew all of those things. And you had mentioned to me you wrote it very quickly. Was it in your mind? Were you cognizant of kind of the tone you wanted to juggle in it, with like how much comedy versus not comedy?
Well, there's a technical issue. That was not my voice cracking. Y'all should check these out.
It's our theater.
Yeah. Oof. In New York, that didn't happen.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's in, I think if it's, not for me to decide whether it's gentle or not, but I think to me, it's like to find the emotion. I wasn't worried about being gentle. Yeah. I was worried about emotion and feeling. And I thought the only way to achieve that actually was to kind of not be gentle.
Right.
Never. I had no desire to mock. I had no desire to me, like bulimia itself was not funny.
Right.
The genre of the movie, like these kind of eating disorder TV movies, but really actually just like, which, I took a lot from, specifically one called Kate's Secret, but also Perfect Body, the best little girl in the world, For the Love of Nancy. It's an incredible subgenre of movie of the week that my sister and I used to watch a lot of, haunted my adolescence. And, but it really is mostly kind of like 1950s American melodramas, like hysterical in the old sense. Melodramas, where there's a big kind of lurid secret that comes out at the end through like kind of old school paperback Freud kind of therapy. But so yeah, I wasn't, to me that was the kind of point of this movie, was to kind of go in with just like it was never to make, like I really don't like the category of dramedy. To me, I wanted to make a hard comedy and a hard drama. And it was a tonal experiment. I didn't know like what would happen. I really didn't know. We just had to kind of commit fully. And I kind of, honestly, and this is the last thing I'll say. Tonight. No. See how he does that? He erases himself.
The mic might give out on you.
Yes. Honestly, the feeling mostly that I was trying to recreate is the feeling that I felt when I first saw Showgirls. Yeah. Which was like a totally just shocking one of the greatest movies ever. But I saw that movie in 2006 for the first time in a packed house at IFC in New York. Joe Esterhaus, the screenwriter, was there. And that movie totally changed my life and made me want to make movies. And I really was, I couldn't believe the tone. I was like screaming, laughing, and I was weeping. And it was so, there's so many mysterious forces at play in that movie that create that specific tone, and it can't be figured out. People have been writing about it for years and trying to understand its tone for years, and who involved is aware of what, who's winking, who's totally sincere, and it's, who cares? Who cares? I don't know. So I felt with this movie, I wanted to almost reverse engineer Showgirls, which was of course made for tens of millions of dollars. But just with my friends, just try to make something that's kind of like Showgirls, has this kind of expressiveness and has a bleeding heart and is over the top and is perverse and is it's fucked up, So I don't know. That was, and I think any sort of sensitivity that's achieved is in this movie. It's not even really about sensitivity. It's this is clearly not a. It's not a cautious movie, But that to me was the point. It was let's see if we can access the feeling of something through full, total commitment. Anyway.
And you say Verhoeven, and I think also kind of Todd Haynes a little bit is there too, yeah. But it strikes me you have this very diverse acting background, and you've explored a lot of tones through other things you've done, and in that way you're kind of the perfect person to be mixing these things. And I'm curious if there are parts that you've had or projects you've been on where you took inspiration for pieces of this movie.
Well, okay, I have to say, I got cast. So, okay, shh, guys, settle down. I can't answer the question. So, what is the deal? Okay, Philly.
Philadelphia.
Feral. So,
This is the quietest they've ever been.
You guys are angels. Okay, so when I was in college, I played Chicklet in Psycho Beach Party, which is a play by Charles Busch, and they turned it into a movie with Lauren Ambrose in the lead. But Charles Busch used to kind of put himself in his favorite genres and play the lead woman, in these plays he would do, and he is a hero of mine, and I played that part, and it was, it's very this. It was like a kind of 1950s Gidget parody,
Right.
and a surfer girl with multiple personalities. I mean, actually, as I'm saying this, I'm like, oops. You did it again, John. So that was a really, really thrilling part for me. I loved doing that. And then I had this old teacher who saw me in that play, and she was like, I want to do an all-male Romeo and Juliet with you as Juliet. And I was like 24, and I was like, I knew it was wrong. Like, I knew I couldn't do it. And I was like, so scared. I was so scared, but I was also like, I obviously have to do that. How can I not do that? I have to do it. But it really was a disaster. It was a total disaster, and it was like, I had this really tricky thing going on. It was like a war in me. Like, I would read the part at home and I would weep, and I was like, this is the most beautiful writing ever. I can't believe this. And then I would get on stage and I would get up in rehearsal, and I was like just dry as a bone. I couldn't do it, and I was humiliated. And we did like 3 weeks of performances, and it was crushing and humiliating. And then the second I got through that, I was like, I'm gonna do stand-up. And so there's something about this movie that is kind of integrating two parts of myself. I mean, I was watching it tonight, and I was like, wow, that big therapy scene with the great Kristen Johnston, like when those two shots, that really is both sides of me. That is like, I am Maddie. There is I am very much Maddie. I'm like a Presbyterian goody two shoes, and then I'm also Kristen. I'm also the mom, Beverly. I'm also this there's this part of me that wants to just stomp on piety and be, and be like, oh, whatever, and there's a naughty part of me and there's a nice part of me, and so I think this was a kind of, for me, it was sort of like a healing experience after the total humiliation of playing Juliet, which, I kind of wrote this role for myself where I was like, I realized when we were shooting the scene where Julie dies and I'm in that was a moment where I was like, what have you done? I was like, this is the craziest thing in the entire world. I was like, I'm like, whoever's directing this is a madman. And then I was like, it's me. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I really was kind of like, the kind of only rule on this was to just commit.
Right.
And to really do it, and really do the emotional scenes and really act it. And that was a moment where I was like, you fucking freak, what are you doing? It was really scary. It was really scary. And I was like, I'd be on the floor, and then I'd be like, cut. It was really weird. It was a very strange experience doing this movie. And but anyway, that was a moment where I was like, oh, this is Juliet. I'm trying to make up for some horrible experience in my life. Anyway.
It's earnest.
It's not drag. It is, you are playing her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with drag.
Yeah. No, that's not what I meant, but yeah. I'm gonna open it up to the audience. Does anybody have any questions? We'll start right here.
Yeah, I noticed in the credits there is a role I've never seen before for Script Girl. For someone named Gordon Bell.
Yes. Oh my God.
So the question was about this role in the credits, the script girl for Gordon Bell.
Yes.
Sorry, just for the back.
No, please.
Gordon Bell was the script supervisor,
Yes.
and he is a brilliant script supervisor, and I worked with him a bunch of times, and they used to call that job in old movies, it was always a woman's job, and it would literally be credited in old movies as script girl. and he wanted to get, he's always asked directors to give him that credit, and they obviously find it problematic. There's a reason we moved on from Script Girl. It's an incredibly dismissive title, obviously, but he just, like, I'm up there playing the fucking ingenue. I was like, of course, you know, I'm like, of course. So we gave him that credit, and I think it's so sweet.
Back there, right here, yeah.
I'm wondering how it worked with the cinematography, because there's so many whips and movements and all these things, but you're directing it and you're playing the main role. So how, was it rehearsals? How did that?
So the question was about the cinematography, because some of it's quite intricate, and yet you're playing the main role. Was there a lot of rehearsal?
It was not a lot of rehearsal, it was just a lot of planning with me and the cinematographer. But we were definitely very inspired by Showgirls, just like almost how Showgirls, it's like overly choreographed. And now there's all like, you know, to me the part that embodies that the most is when Kate comes in with the 600,000 views, and then she looks at the phone and then she spins around me, which is like physically unnecessary, you know. And that to me was like, that was the joke, was always going up to that line a little, where there's always like one too many like blocking moments, like one too, like where they're just passing this person crossing, you know, like the door opens, spin around each other, what? And then like that was, so that's what we were going for. But that was really, I mean, you guys, we made this movie so fast, and I'm so shocked by how it looks like we have control in the end, you know. And that was, you know, by design. In a way, I wrote a movie that could be these like chunks, you know, like really like blunt chunks of action that could be filmed very economically. But it was really kind of crazy. There's always kind of like one take that works, you know. And but we just did, me and Max Lackner, this is his first feature film. It's so crazy. So many people, the costume designers, like it was like almost everyone's first feature, and that's because it was so low budget. The financiers allowed me to do that, you know, to like hire my friends. But he and I would just plan it out on an iPhone.
Over here.
Could you speak more to your writing process? Like how much of it was scripted versus improvisation?
So the question was about your writing process and how much of the film was scripted versus improvisation.
This movie is totally scripted. Like, there's maybe one little thing of me and Kate in the car where we're like, oh, the door's stuck. Like, you know, or that little, like, the halting little moment there. But everything's written, and that was what I was desperate to do, because Kate and I have done so much stuff together where we improvise for hours, and then we spend 62 years editing it. Because you're just like, and it makes you so full of dread, and it takes forever, and you're just like creating, you know. I wanted to make something that was like, so this happened, like where people are like, now I say this, you know, like where there's just like a clarity and bluntness, and so it had to be really scripted, and that was like the style, was for it to feel almost like overly written, or yeah.
But I want to quickly follow up on that. Is it different because you're writing for your friends and you know what they're going to be like, so you're sort of scripting, but you have the improv in your head of them?
Definitely writing for my friend, but I mean, I was honestly writing more for archetypes that I knew my friends could play. But certainly, like, yeah, it's like, I want to hear Kate say this thing, or whatever. But the writing was very, you know, I was really writing in a very blunt, like, formulaic way, and looking at the formulas of these kinds of movies, but it was so mysterious to me, because it was like the second I started writing it, I was laughing, but then within like 12 pages, I was like like weeping uncontrolled. Like, it was so bizarre. It was like, it was cool. I was like, oh, this is like, I thought I was making something very imaginative and very extreme and kind of outrageous and whatever, but then I was like, oh, I'm clearly working through something here. I was like, uh-oh. I was like, you can stop now, but I didn't.
Right here.
John, you infamously created a Toni Collette fan site on
Yes.
GeoCity.
Yes.
I'm very inspired by her performance in Clockworkers.
Yes.
So my question is, have you been able to meet Toni Collette, and if so, did you tell her about the fan site?
So the question was about your Toni Collette fan site on GeoCities, and have you been able to meet Toni Collette, and did you tell her about the fan site?
Well, I should also say that, what's her name?
Emma.
Emma works at Bon Appetit. Sorry, prop stylist, freelance, occasionally at Bon Appetit. I did a interview at Bon Appetit the other day for this movie, and it was like horrifying because it was like I was like that'll be fine, right? Because I'm not like making fun of Bon Appetit, and then I got there and it was like so tense. Yeah, it was really tense.
They were pissed.
Pissed is maybe too strong. I think they were like defensive a little bit. And I was like, why did we do this? Why did we arrange this interview? But Emma was there doing prop styling. Okay.
I caught her with you.
Yes. Oh my god. I made a Toni Collette website when I was in middle school, and when I was 11, 12 years old, that I ran for 3 years. For free, obviously. There's no money in that. And I loved her so much. I mean, I named my dog Muriel. I was obsessed with clock. There's a lot of clock watchers in this movie. There's a lot of Muriel's wedding in this movie. And there are times where I'm acting where I'm like, you're just doing Toni Collette again. Like, it's so crazy. I did get to meet her. I have a very funny story, really quick.
Yeah.
She's found out over the years about the website. So when they did a 25th anniversary screening of Muriel's wedding, she invited me to come see it was at Lincoln Center, okay? I lived in LA at the time. She was like, you should come to this. And me and my boyfriend were like, we're going. Like, I was like, I got plane tickets. We're making a trip out of it. We're going. Like, I'm not gonna miss the 25th anniversary. We fly to New York and see Muriel's wedding, and then at the after party, she's talking to me and my boyfriend, and then 10 minutes in the conversation, she goes, do you live in LA? And I was like, yeah. And then she goes, you didn't come here just for this, did you? And then I was completely silent, and my boyfriend goes, we're seeing shows.
That's a good party.
It was so sweet. And my ex-boyfriend is the production designer of this movie, and he played Kyle, the kind of incompetent guy at Bon Appetit. I admit it, baby!
We have time for one more, so I'm gonna go right here in the split row, right there, yeah.
So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second of all, I thought the most honest therapy scene was the memorial to Julia.
Yeah.
Was that on purpose, and what was your thought process around that?
So the question was about the memorial to Julia scene, and was that on purpose to be the most earnest scene? And what was your thought process behind that scene?
Yes, that was the scene that I wanted to be the kind of most open. Even a lot of the emotional scenes have a kind of, they either have a hard joke in them to sort of balance them out, or they have some sort of stylistic gesture, like a kind of acting style thing that helps it stay a little funny. But that is the scene that I absolutely wanted to be the most kind of the sacred center of the movie. And that was one of the most compromised moments of the shoot. Was we shot that at the very last moment of the day, and it was so hard, and it was there was so much highway noise, and it was a total disaster, and it was such a disaster. But everyone, I was so moved by those girls. They just completely threw themselves into it, took it totally seriously, and we did it. We somehow did it. It's so cool. I'm really glad you like that scene. Thank you.
We have to turn the theater over, but I just want to thank you so much for coming down. Tell everyone you know.